This talk is called Constant Light Speed Stipulation, not Postulate. Picking up from previous video, Magic of Einstein 1905, light speed constant means light speed not constant. And you can get what Einstein has in his special relativity is that light speed is not constant, and you can get that via several ways. So what is happening is that many things said by the mainstream about Einstein's relativity is wrong. They got it wrong. They got Einstein's relativity wrong. A large part of getting it wrong comes from Einstein himself. Thus many of those who point out Einstein wrong have got it right. So going by an article about Einstein's mistakes, and this is from Physics Today, a physics journal, and the article is called The Value of Einstein's Mistakes. It's by Hans Ohanian, and that is a letter to Physics Today. By light speed, I'm going to mean in the context of this video, light speed in vacuum, free of gravity and so forth, and putting aside the issue, there's different types of light speed, and I'm going by what Einstein says in 1905. So now, picking up from that letter article, there's a problem with stipulation and postulate, and those two ideas have been mixed up in Einstein's relativity, and it's part of what I call Einstein's convoluted way of talking about things, an issue dealt with in previous video where Einstein talks about things, he gets things messed up. And part of that problem is probably because he's writing in German, and it's a problem in translating that properly into English. So the information is coming from this person who's a physicist, and he wrote this book, Einstein's Mistakes, The Human Failings of Genius. So there's a lot of mistakes in relativity, a lot of things that the mainstream says about relativity is not correct, it's a mistake, and Ohanian is pointing out some of those mistakes which the mainstream make about relativity. So on to the relevant article stroke letter to Physics Today from Ohanian. Ohanian starts by referring to an earlier article, and that earlier article was by Steven Weinberg. He's analysing some of the Einstein's mistakes. And that earlier article was this one, Einstein's Mistakes by Steven Weinberg, and that was in Physics Today as well. And that article by Weinberg says the set of mistakes discussed in this article is not intended to be exhaustive. So the article was pointing out some of the mistakes of Einstein and not all of Einstein's mistakes. Thus Ohanian, replying his letter, is pointing out some more mistakes. Ohanian goes on to say, in a lengthy discussion in the first part of that paper, Einstein showed that the speed of light can be made constant by adopting a clock synchronization based on two-way light signals. This is the paper by Einstein in 1905 on special relativity. With that synchronization, measurements of the one-way speed of light becomes logically circular, and Einstein later declared that the constancy of the speed of light was neither a supposition nor a hypothesis about the physical nature of light, but a stipulation which I can make at my free discretion to arrive at a definition of simultaneity. And there's a lot of things to note there. Einstein does not use the terms like one-way light speed, but that's how it's being interpreted by Ohanian and a lot of other people, that is what Einstein is talking about. Einstein also does not talk about two-way light speeds, but that is also how it's now being interpreted. And also what Einstein is saying in that paper now gets interpreted as a clock synchronization process, which is Einstein telling us to use. And when it's being noted here that it's logically circular, that means circular region, which is a logic error. Einstein is making a logic mistake of circular reasoning. So there's a lot to digest from just that little small paragraph. Ohanian gives reference for that, and he's citing the collected papers of Albert Einstein, volume 6. So I looked that up, and the page number doesn't seem to be the same as what he cites, but so why the page number is wrong, I don't know. This is the relevant bit from the collected works of Einstein, and I'm going to zoom in on that. This is the relevant passage from what Einstein's saying. After further consideration, you cast a somewhat disdainful glance at me, and rightly so, and you declare I maintain my previous definition, nevertheless, because in reality it assumes absolutely nothing about light. There is only one demand to be made of the definition of simultaneity, namely that in every real case it must supply us with an empirical decision as to whether or not the conception that has to be defined is fulfilled. That my definition satisfies this demand is indisputable. That light requires the same time to traverse the path A to M, and as for the path B to M, is in reality neither a supposition nor a hypothesis about the physical nature of light, but a stipulation which I can make of my own free will in order to arrive at a definition of simultaneity. So what Einstein is doing is he's making a stipulation so he can define simultaneity, and the definition of simultaneity is one peculiar to Einstein. That's how he wants to define simultaneity, and in order to get that he has to give a stipulation, and he's admitting that by using the word stipulation. Issue of whether this has been translated properly into English I will put aside. It's from the collected works of Einstein, and hopefully that is quite a good translation, but who knows. So going by this translation of Einstein's 1905 paper on special relativity, Einstein is not using the term stipulation. Instead he's talking about postulates. So that may be a problem with translating from German into English. There may be a problem that what he's saying is better translated as stipulation, but it's not clear. Things like that should have been clarified, and there's other translation problems that I've pointed out. in my other videos. So stipulation makes it more seem that stipulation means something arbitrary, where stipulating the mass to have light speed is constant, but that is an arbitrary choice and can do the math another way. Whereas postulate makes it seem he means stating what he thinks the physics of the universe should be going by. Of course, the meaning of stipulation versus postulate is an interpretation. But the issue becomes, what did Einstein mean by those words? And the answer is, it's left unclarified. For me, he stipulated the mass c to be constant light speed, but that was just his way of doing the maths, and could have easily stipulated the maths another way. Thus light speed is not constant. Just those reading Einstein misunderstanding what he is saying in his convoluted way of speaking about things. So the universe does not have light speed as constant c. What is happening is Einstein's just choosing to have the mass have light speed c be a constant, and that's what he's imposing upon it arbitrarily, and he could easily have stipulated things a different way. Einstein in his 1905 paper has this equation. He wants the clocks to be synchronized for that equation to hold, and that is now called, usually called, Einstein's synchronization. Ohanian goes on to point out that is not the only way can synchronize clocks. Ohanian says this, however, Einstein overlooked that the validity of Newton's laws at low speeds in each reference frame permits the use of simple mechanical methods of synchronization, such as slow clock transport or sound signals. So Einstein's making another mistake here, and it's a mistake of omission. He had Einstein synchronizing clocks in one way, which is now called Einstein synchronization, and he's not mentioning the other ways of synchronizing things. So Einstein makes the sin of omission, which makes it seem like he doesn't know about the other synchronization methods. Einstein's synchronization procedure with light signals is thus superfluous. It plays no fundamental role and is merely the most convenient of several possible synchronization processes. So basically what we're saying is here that if you stipulate light speed to be c in the mathematics as a constant, by what Einstein's doing to set up his synchronization process, well, you don't have to set up the maths that way, and you can have other synchronization process. And so light speed is not really a constant in the universe. It's just a result of how you're arbitrarily deciding to set up the synchronization process. Furthermore, it says here, if clocks are synchronized by slow clocks transport or by some other mechanical procedure, the measurements of the one-way speed of light are not logically circular, and thus measurements provide an ambiguous experimental test of the constancy of the speed of light. In fact, clock transport has been used in such experimental test. Einstein should have considered the implications of alternative synchronization procedures for the conceptual foundations of relativity. So it's another mistake by Einstein. It's the problem of omission. He's omitted to go into details about this, and so he makes a mistake by omitting to go into details about that. And it carries on and says, or Henning carries on and says, and he, or Einstein, should have recognised that the constancy of the speed of light had to be established by experiment, not by stipulation. So Einstein is making another mistake here. He is not establishing by experiment that the speed of light is constant, and he should have done that, but he doesn't. Instead, he is just making the maths be stipulated as having the light speed as constant, while in reality the universe is not necessarily going by the way Einstein chooses to do the maths. And so I make a comment here, so light speed is not constant. It was just a stipulation to make it constant for one method of clock synchronization, but can stipulate the maths in other ways, so can synchronize clocks in other ways, and hence light speed not constant. Light speed is not constant. It's just a mess in understanding what Einstein was saying that leads many to think it is constant. And there are many confusing things that Einstein says which needs tidying up. These mistakes with Einstein's relativity have been pointed out in many science/physics journals. It then leads one to wonder how much has this filtered down to others working/believing relativity, and the answer is, of course, not much has filtered down to them. Those who believe in Einstein's relativity, are going by and reciting the mistakes of believing such things as that the speed of light is constant. And really, if you look in the maths, it's not constant. Other issues include the following, which I'm clarifying from previous videos. Einstein not translated properly into English, i.e. just going to go with the usual bad translation that people go by in this video. 2, ambiguity created by the different types of light speed, and the different types are now local light speed, coordinate light speed, etc. And Einstein was not using that terminology, so it's been built upon, and etc. There's lots of problems now from having built upon the bad way that Einstein was talking about things and the mistakes he was making. That's the magic for Einstein. Despite saying light speed is constant, he still has light speed as not constant in his theory. And we can, as I pointed out in this video and others, you can come to the realization that light speed is not constant from reading Einstein in several different directions, and it involves having to tidy up what he's saying. Finished. Thank you. This is the end of this video. Thank you.